Meeting for October 19th, 2016. If you'll please stand for the invocation and the Pledge of Allegiance. Dear Lord, thank you so much for the leaders that are gathered here on the dais, in our audience, and around our city. Thank you so much for the incredible opportunity that we have tonight in this amazing building and what that means for the future of Canby. It's an incredible blessing, and we can't begin to say thank you enough. We ask that you guide us, provide us with wisdom, and watch over our city as we grow and go through the process of growing. We ask that you look over our men and women that are in service for our country and here locally, and keep them safe and out of harm's way. We ask these things in your name. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please be seated. Thank you. Next on the agenda is a proclamation for Red Ribbon Week, which I think everybody got when they came in. Red Ribbon Week. Whereas communities across America have been plagued by the numerous problems associated with illicit drug use and those that traffic in them, and whereas there is hope in winning the war on drugs, and that hope lies in education and drug demand reduction, coupled with hard work and determination of organizations such as the Lewis and Clark Young Marines of the Marine Corps League to foster a healthy, drug-free lifestyle. And whereas governments and community leaders know that citizen support is one of the most effective tools in the effort to reduce the use of illicit drugs in our communities, and whereas the Red Ribbon has been chosen as a symbol commemorating the work of Enrique Kiki Camarena, a Drug Enforcement Administration special agent who was murdered in the line of duty, and represents the belief that one person can make a difference. And whereas the Red Ribbon Campaign was established by Congress in 1988 to encourage a drug-free lifestyle and involvement in drug prevention and reduction efforts, and whereas October 23rd through the 31st, 2016, has been designated National Red Ribbon Week, which encourages Americans to wear a red ribbon to show their support for a drug-free environment. Now, therefore, I, Brian Hodson, by the virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Canby, do hereby proclaim October 23rd through the 31st, 2016 as Red Ribbon Week in the city of Canby, and urge all citizens to join me in the special observance given unto my hand this 19th day of October 2016 in the city of Canby, Oregon. And I have Lance Corporal Andrew Francis and Lance Corporal Philip Taylor here to receive this evening.
Hi, my name is Lance Corporal Andrew Francis from the Lewis and Clark Young Marines, and this is the story about how Red Ribbon Week began. The National Family Partnership organized the first nationwide Red Ribbon campaign. NFP provides drug awareness by sponsoring the annual Red Ribbon Week campaign. Since its beginning in 1985, the Red Ribbon has touched the lives of millions of people around the world. In response to the murder of DEA agent Enrique Camarena, angered parents and youth communities across the country began wearing red ribbons as a symbol of their commitment to raise awareness of the killings and destruction caused by drugs in America. Enrique Camarena was a DEA agent who was tortured and killed in Mexico in 1985. When he decided to join the U.S. DEA, his mother tried to talk him out of it. "I'm only one person," he told her, "but I want to make a difference." On February 7th, 1985, the 37-year-old Camarena left his office to meet his wife for lunch. 5 men appeared at the agent's side and shoved him into a car. 1 month later, Camarena's body was found. He had been tortured to death. In honor of Camarina's memory and his battle against illegal drugs, friends and neighbors began to wear red badges of satin. Parents, sick of the destruction of alcohol and other drugs, had begun forming coalitions. Some of these new coalitions took Camarina as their model and embraced his belief that one person can make a difference. These coalitions also adopted the symbol of Camarina's memory, the red ribbon. In 1988, NFP sponsored the first National Red Ribbon celebration. Today, the red ribbon serves as a catalyst to mobilize communities to educate youth and encourage participation in drug prevention activities. Since that time, the campaign has reached millions of U.S. families and children. The National Family Partnership and its networks of individuals and organizations continue to deliver his message of hope to millions of people every year through the National Red Ribbon campaign.
Excellent. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Great. Next on the agenda is communications. Anything from the far end of the dais now? I have nothing to add. All right. Great. Now, this is our first opportunity for citizen input and community announcements. If you do wish to address the council on a non-agenda item, please fill out a yellow card. Make sure that our city recorder, Ms. Schaefer, gets that to enter, and we will get things documented and allow you time to address us. Just as we've got a stack here, just a reminder that everyone's got 3 minutes, please, when you come up. You'll come here to the center table and let us know what's on your mind. Pamela White, regarding the council appointment. You were the first card in, my dear.
Oh, is that right? Do I need to tell you my address too? I can't remember how.
No, I believe the city
We're good?
recorder has
Okay.
that. You're A-okay.
Mayor Hudson, President Dale, Councilors Hensley, Parker, Coleman, Height, and Roca. I want to first thank you for all your public service to our community. I have served as a school board member and have been close to others who have served as public officials. And I know that it's often a thankless job with very little or no pay, so thank you for your hard work and your sacrifices on behalf of our community. I wish to address you tonight concerning your choice to appoint a replacement for Councilor Roca at a special meeting next Wednesday, October 26, 2016, which I will note for the record is 6 days before the next biennial general election. I know there's been a lot of buzz around the partisan politics and far-right versus progressive ideologies, and I commend Canby Herald editor John Baker for calling both individuals and groups of people around these issues in today's editorial. And if you have not read it, I encourage you to do so. However, my concern today is the City Council's interpretation of the city charter in appointing a successor for Commissioner Roca. The charter says in part that the appointee's term shall begin immediately upon appointment and shall continue until the beginning of the year following the general biennial election and until a successor is elected and qualified. The successor for the unexpired term shall be elected at the next general biennial election after said appointment. My reading of this says that an appointee chosen on the date of October 26, 2016 will serve until January 2017. I understand that you as a council are intending that this appointee will serve until the end of Councilor Roca's term, which is the beginning of January 2019. I am therefore suggesting that you change the date of the attended appointment until after the November 8th, 2016 election. At that time, you will be in compliance with your own charter, and which again, I will point out to you, says that the successor will be, and I quote, elected at the next general biennial election after said appointment. You will also then know who has been elected to the council. You will know how many women, how many men, what their ages and demographics are, and what life and professional skills that they bring to the table, so you can help populate the board in a way that best serves your constituents. And your constituents are not all just like you, and they're not all just like me. But they are also like us. They're like us and they're not like us. Yet every one of them makes their life in our beautiful little town, and they are affected every day by your decisions. Every single person who lives here. So let me make myself one more time perfectly clear. If you are intending to appoint Councilor Roca's replacement through the end of his term, then I am asking you to postpone your special appointment meeting now planned for October 26, 2016 until after the November 8th general biennial election. At that time, I ask that you thoughtfully appoint someone based on balancing the board with diversity and skill sets to meet the needs of our increasingly diverse and growing community. Or maybe you ought to consider appointing the fourth person who actually took the time, the interest, and the hard work to run for this office, because who knows, it might just be one of you. Finally, I wanted to let you know that before I came to this meeting tonight, I sent a letter to our county clerk, Sherry Hall, and asked her to make inquiry into whether or not the city council is following its own charter in this appointment. If she chooses not to do this inquiry, then it is my understanding that I'm free to take it on to the Secretary of State, and from there it is possible to take it to the Fifth Circuit Court for an injunction. If in fact you wait until after the next general biennial election on November 8th, it becomes a moot point because the next general biennial election would clearly coincide with the end of Councilor Roca's term. Thank you for your time.
Just as a reminder, please, 3 minutes. Let's keep them to 3 minutes. There's a number of you that do want to address us. Joe, can you clarify the comments there, please?
Well, certainly, I think the charter itself does have those words in it, but one of the issues is one of pragmatism. Because we are so close to this election right now, it isn't feasible you would have had to have gotten your name onto the ballot back August 25th, right, I believe? So anything after August 25th, I think de facto, just for pragmatic reasons, goes to the following general biennial election anyway, because it wouldn't have been feasible to put the appointee's name on between August 25th and now anyway. So that's how I would interpret that.
Okay. So that's your interpretation of the charter in that regards.
Correct. Because of the timing.
Mr. Templeman. Thank you.
I'm here to urge you to fill the city council vacancy by assigning the seat to the candidate receiving the fourth highest number of votes in the November election. This council in the past has trumpeted its objective to give citizens a greater voice in decision-making. Councilor Hensley, in your voters' pamphlet statement, you fight for our rights to vote on urban renewal spending and to vote on new library project. How now can this council ignore votes that will be cast in an election just 20 days from now? I don't mean to disparage any of the applicants who have recently applied for the vacant council seat, excuse me, but strongly feel that a candidate who filed several months ago and who has been vigorously campaigning since then should be appointed to fill this unexpected opening. In the 2014 election, the fourth highest vote getter received 2,700 votes. Mr. Coleman, almost a quarter of the votes cast. By ignoring the votes of the fourth candidate in the coming election, you're effectively saying that your 4 or 5 votes on the council should take precedence over the wishes of thousands of Canby voters. I think that's wrong, and I hope you will agree to appoint candidate number 4 to this post, whomever that might be. Thank you.
Appreciate that. Ms. Chavez. Evening.
Good evening. This seems to be the topic of the evening. I'm Susan Chavez. I live in Canby. I'd like to first thank everyone for being here, taking the time to listen and discuss these important city issues. It's been an incredibly divisive election year. In the upcoming council seat appointment, the council has an opportunity to turn the corner and lead us as a community towards a future of cooperation. The Canby City Council is supposed to be nonpartisan, a group that makes decisions based only on what's best for Canby. I believe what's best for Canby right now is a nonpartisan appointment. So what would a nonpartisan candidate look like? Most of us are registered with some political party. It becomes a matter of degree. Still, I believe most people would say that holding a leadership position to advance either political party is definitely partisan. Though that party leader may make every effort to leave partisanship behind, with all the divisiveness around us, that person is not who Canby needs now. I urge the council to pick an inclusive candidate who helps bring the entire community together. Thank you.
Burrows.
Yes, I'm the guy that got 2 letters to the editor in this week. And it wasn't my fault.
I think that was that last week or this week as well?
This week, I think it was.
Last week. All right.
Anyway, I
know.
hit the bonus there. This is going to be real brief. I just want to thank the council for the opportunity to express my thoughts on filling this city council vacancy. I'm just going to make a couple of points. First, I'm like some of the other people, to fill the vacancy, my preference is to let the top 4 vote getters fill the seats. And second, if the council is going to pick, my wish is that the council give the highest priority to nonpartisanship in making their decision. And I think looking at in all the candidates' past activities and associations would probably be a good measure of that. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Sure. Ms. Kramer.
Good evening, Mayor Hodson and councilors and city officials. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Okay, come on, phone. There we go. This appointment process has been characterized as being business as usual, but we're not in a usual situation right now. We're very close to an election, and the timing feels wrong. Now, it's unprecedented that 3 of the 5 decision makers who would make the decision on an appointment before an election would have a personal political gain by questioning the opposition, remarking on the fitness for office, someone who they may be campaigning against without reciprocity from that candidate being able to make comment, do the same. And it just, the timing of it, as well-intentioned as this, I believe, is, the timing will always look, smell, and just feel bad, especially since there is no reason to rush this. It is not incumbent to rush this process. There's only a 2-week difference, but the decision can make a very pure process clouded with doubt and with conflict of interest overtones. So I respectfully request that you delay the appointment process until after the general election. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Change of topics, Mr. Perez regarding a hotel.
Time to change the topic? Sure, I can do that. Good evening, Mayor, City Councilman, and City employees. My name is Greg Perez, and I live here in Canby. This evening, what I'd like to talk to you about is the numbers that we have coming to Canby, visiting, coming to events throughout the year. And the numbers that we put together, and it was with Mallory a couple of days ago, was over 600,000 people that attend events in Canby each year. And that includes, of course, the fairgrounds, to name a few. Right now, their numbers are from 300,000 to 350,000 throughout the year, spread out events. Then, of course, we have the Dahlia Festival, the Dahlia Run, we have the Cruise In, we have the Street Dance, we have Allegro Dance. It has a 2-day competition that is, people are coming from outside the area. Volleyball tournament every year, basketball tournament every year, and the Mount Hood Soccer Invitational that's here. Those are 2-day events to which we have talked about in the past of losing $1.5 million going outside the area in a way of lodging and food and people buying other items outside of our area. So my thought is, and I brought this up before, I think, and nothing against anybody. It's just, this is not an easy thing to do, but Canby needs another hotel. We have one right now. It's enough to hold some people over. We need something to keep people in Canby so everybody's a winner, to include all of the businesses. Because when these people stay in Canby, they're going to spend money and stay in the area. Everybody's a winner. Every business owner's a winner. The city would appreciate this too, because of the hotel tax dollars that are going to come back into the system. So I would like to ask, and I know we were talking about tourism last week. We have the pieces of the puzzle. We need to put the puzzle together and make this happen, because we're losing each year $1 million plus, and we need to have something in place other than bringing it up periodically. And so I understand that sometimes there's something in the hopper that we're looking at down the road. But last week we had an individual that confronted us from Marriott Hotels. And his question to us was, why don't you have a hotel here? And so he is now going to be our point of contact, because he says you guys are missing out. So of course, once we get that information, we're going to pass it on to the city. One of the things that the community needs to know, that no URD funds are going to be used for this project. It's going to be from investors or from the corporation that comes forward that wants to be a part of the Canby community. And that's all I wanted to say. You're welcome.
Mr. Perez. Sorry, and I was remiss before moving on to Mr. Perez. We did have an email come in from Mr. Fenton that all the city councilors were copied on, as well as the city recorder, and it'll be included in the packet for the notes for tonight. So just so that was, and it was along the same lines of the appointment process and not waiting to do it post-election. So it was that piece there. To address some of the pieces that were laid out here this evening, and not to get into a lot of back and forth and dialogue. I appreciate everyone's input and coming forward and addressing the council on this particular matter. I know that it's been a very interesting couple of weeks, if you read the Herald and some of our emails and conversations that are being had. In terms of, as I've had conversation with our city attorney and on the matter, the dialogue of the city charter, and we talked about this when the decision was made, was the key word being in the charter is that the council shall appoint. That falls under our purview to do that. And so, what I'm hearing is not the argument to do that, it's the timing of when we do that. Granted, I understand that. So previous council meetings, motion was made, we're on a path right now that has that going. The only thing that would change that direction, and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, is if there's a motion made and whatnot to change the process now, which then would then mean we would what?
Well, we had somewhat of a discussion, here we go, about kind of the parliamentary rules that we have a relaxed need to follow. What I mean by that is this council follows Robert's rules in a relaxed fashion, and that's just the way that we get kind of our process done. And a couple of motions, when the council's made a motion, one would be a motion to reconsider, and that's off the table because that has to be done during the meeting of which the motion itself was done. So then there's a motion to rescind, which can happen at any subsequent meeting, but there's a problem in that a motion to rescind has to either be properly advertised, because we do have open public meetings. If it isn't properly advertised but yet entertained, I think there's a question of why didn't we properly advertise it? And I think in public meetings law, I'm going to always err on the side of, I think for public meetings law, we're supposed to have the most openness and the most transparency that we can with our advertising. And so I would say, in any event, if you're going to go to a motion to rescind, I would kick it one more meeting away, because I think it needs to be properly advertised. There would be an avenue to even have a new motion that didn't touch upon the subject matter of the old motion. The old motion itself talks about the collecting of interested persons and then conducting interviews, and that's all it says. And so there is an avenue that a new motion could be made. I think it should also be properly noticed, so next meeting would be the time to do it, where you could say something to the effect that has nothing to do with, collecting interested parties or interviews, but could be, the timing of when you're going to actually appoint. So if you wanted to put it on the agenda to see if, we want to entertain a motion for kicking the can down the road, so to speak, with the actual appointment timing, I think the next meeting would be the time to do it, just legally speaking. Does that answer your question?
I believe it does.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Councilor Hyde?
So that means at the next meeting, our next regularly scheduled meeting, November 3rd?
Well, you could always make it, as long as it's advertised with enough time, and I think it's at least 24 hours timing on these things.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we have a next scheduled meeting for interviews on the 26th. So as long as, if that was at least put in there, that motion may or may not be entertained at that time, I think that would qualify as far as advertising goes. And then whether or not you make a motion and it actually gets seconded and then you actually take it to vote is up to you guys and the procedures that you want to follow at that meeting. Because you can always table something too, even if you first and second it. I mean, I'm going further into speculation than I'm probably comfortable with.
No, I think you're explaining it. Does that answer your question, Councilor?
I think so. So that means if a counselor did want to make a motion to not rescind, but to re-examine the process, essentially, it would have to be done on October 26th. We wouldn't call another special meeting in 48 hours. It wouldn't be an emergency meeting. It would
Yeah.
just be during that special meeting.
I would think so.
Okay.
That makes the most sense to me. And then, in a sense, that would almost make a motion to rescind moot, because the effect of the first motion was to gather interested parties and hold interviews, and if you're already holding interviews, you're not going to rescind that process anyway. So a new motion at that point might be something that you could entertain or not, but it wouldn't necessarily have to be a motion to rescind, because you're not going to then say, no more interested parties and shove them out and undo what you've done, if that makes sense. Because a motion to rescind really reverses course on stuff.
Can I ask another question? So if there is interest in maybe heading that direction, though, the publication, it would have to be with public meetings law, it would have to be put on the announcement for the October 26th, just in case somebody makes that motion, right? Just to cover.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, the subject matter of that is the interviews itself. So arguably, you could say the subject matter is being covered by the advertising. But we advertise in our website and locally in the paper, and then also at the post office. Is that usually how we do
The
it?
post office and upstairs at City Hall and downstairs.
Okay. So I mean, and it's not bad for us to learn what our process is, but I would make an argument that it's covered and that the subject matter really is covered of what we're going to be talking about.
So
If you want
because-
to make an entirely different motion, then we better advertise it.
So basically, so what I'm understanding then, just for my clarification, is since that the 26th meeting has to do with the interview process and the decision of.
Potentially the
Potentially of
appointment of, yeah.
appointing, then if there is that thought of or the desire to, that a motion could be made under that topic heading about whatever the motion may be, that has to pertain to not the interview process itself, but the appointment thereafter.
Yeah, that would be, I would say that would be a legal use of, that particular motion.
Yeah, once you fulfill the obligation that you've established as part of the agenda, which is the interview of the candidates, then any motion relevant to that process is an acceptable motion, because there is an expectation that a motion will occur. The appointment, the continuation, it could be any number of outcomes, but there is an expectation that an action, a motion, a consideration, and action will occur. What that motion, consideration, and action is going to be subject of your discussion.
Yeah, it's pretty related, I guess. So actually come that night, then the process will be someone, when we do appoint, if we do, someone would make a motion. I'm not sure what the process will even be when it occurs.
So the evening of the interview, so the 5 candidates will be interviewed. Once they're done being interviewed, we'll sit here and talk about them in front of them. On camera.
Okay.
During the interview process.
Okay.
And then, based on that conversation, I will ask each of you, who are your number 1, your number 2, and maybe your number 3 choice. And then from there, we will then work towards what is a candidate that we can, make a motion to appoint based on through deliberation and conversation. And then that would be, a motion would be made and either seconded, and then, again, we'll follow Robert's Rules of Order in that regards, and then the appointment process, then that person would then be the person that is appointed, and then would be sworn in on the first meeting in November. Am I summating that correctly?
If that's indeed what you guys, if your motion says to be sworn in on November 2nd.
Sorry, yes.
Yeah. I mean, so yes,
Providing that's the verbiage, excuse me, correct.
because we take our orders from your guys' motions in that regard, yeah.
And for the sake of the public, the reason we don't do it executively, can you explain to the public why it's not done behind closed doors? It's an open process, but I think some citizens don't know why. Like in a job interview, you talk about your candidates behind closed doors. Can you explain that to the public?
I think you just explained it
If that makes sense?
perfectly.
Okay, there's only 3.
It is a transparent and open process. Like,
Okay.
the packet's been posted, so everyone can go online and see who the 5 people are that are interviewing. They can tune in, show up, watch, pop some popcorn, come down, watch the interview process, and watch us discuss
Okay.
the 5 candidates. Because again, much like I think the conversation being with the election process, where the candidates are out, they're out campaigning, there's the candidate forum, there's been the articles in the paper. It is our opportunity to vet that person here publicly, hence why, so we've got questions that have been sent to the candidates for their preparation. Of course, there will be follow-up from those questions from us to address those candidates and whether or not can they be, impartial? Can they put Canby first, and do those things? So that'll be up to us to vet those candidates out.
And I can tell you, legally speaking, that it's any deliberation and any action that you take has to be in a public forum, except for if it falls under an executive privilege. And this isn't one of those privilege situations. The employment one has to do more with your actual employees. You're not hiring an employee, you're hiring a peer. And so that's a public one. You don't get the umbrella of protection that is the executive session. Yeah.
You might also explain who's voting on that night.
Right, so the people voting that evening, thank you, Councilor Rocha will not be involved in the voting process because his position's in essence the one that's being replaced, so he will not be part of the voting process. It'll be Councilor Parker, Councilor Hensley, Councilor Dale, Councilor Height, and Councilor Coleman. The only time the mayor ever votes in our form of government is if there's a tie. So if there's a 3-3 or a 4-4, that'll never happen. 3-3 or 2-2, in a rare instance, if that happens, then I become the tiebreaker. So in the case of this, we'll have 5 councilors deliberating and making the decision on who the appointed candidate will be.
I guess one could abstain and make you vote.
One could, absolutely.
Yeah, that's very true.
Thank you for that, Joe.
Yeah.
Councilor Parker.
Two things. First of all, for those of you that have not participated in this sort of thing, it is extremely uncomfortable, both on this side of the dais. And I think Mr. Perez and I were applicants before the City Council seeking appointment, and the council said, no, we don't want Parker or Perez. We want, I think it was Hudson. So it's not a particularly easy thing to do, to evaluate your fellow citizens in front of everybody, but that's the process we are given. Finally, Mayor, I had a question to you on process. Ms. Kramer mentioned that people would be asking questions from the dais of these questions. Now, are these the same questions that we've used in years past? What's the nature of the questions? And would you, as presiding officer, allow any of us to go off topic and get into a campaign mode of prosecuting people who are interviewing?
No, that's a fair question, and actually the questions that were sent out that are in the packet, that is online, that has been sent out to all the candidates, are the questions that we basically start with. And it is my job as the, what's the word I'm looking for maybe here, Joe?
Moderator.
Thank you, moderator. I almost used referee as my word for the evening, but moderator is to prevent that from occurring, both from those that are interviewing as well as those that are up here, from grandstanding, soapboxing, or campaigning from the dais. So, fair question, thank you.
And as a follow, may I ask a follow-up to that?
Yes.
So that also means it's not a conflict of interest legally for incumbents to judge on somebody that they're maybe campaigning against. I'm not campaigning against, but are running against in the.
Well, I thought about that when one of the people who spoke tonight kind of alluded to the idea of people sitting in judgment of people who they're running against. The result is not, for one, it's self-imposed. The people who signed up for the appointment process who are also running actually get a second or 2 bites at the apple, because it's not like they have to remove themselves from the ballot. So they actually get a second shot at, whereas the people up on the dais actually don't. So in a sense, there's an advantage to coming in and applying and then also still running that the people on the dais don't get. But second of all, the people put themselves in that position. They could have just sat back and said, no, I'm going to let the people decide and leave themselves there. They've chosen to come in front of a different process, and the different process is the appointment process. And so I also don't think it's unfair because the people who are running, they inure the benefit of either getting that position or and being heard, whereas the people on the dais, the most they can do is give a benefit to the people who are showing up and actually asking for the position. They could be given the position, whereas if they don't give the position over to the person, then they actually keep the competition against them in the general election. And people could still vote for the people in the general election anyway. So I don't think they're getting an actual benefit. And in fact, I think the people who are choosing to go to the appointment process get the added benefits of being heard and having their platform on television. That's just me thinking out loud about it, but I believe that they've put themselves in the process. They didn't have to join, and they're actually getting a benefit from it, so, yeah.
Councilor Rocha?
Are we about done with this part of a?
I thought you had a question about this.
No, I have a question. I have a
No?
statement.
Is there any other pieces? No? Is your statement about this?
Yep.
Okay.
I want to apologize to my colleagues. I had no idea all of this was going to happen when I gave my resignation, and I seriously did not, I had no idea. My reasoning for resigning my position was, and staying this long, was actually selfish. I wanted to see this project through, and I wanted to be in this seat before I left. So unfortunately, that's caused a problem with everything you see here tonight. So for that, I apologize. It wasn't my intent.
Well, I'm not going to let you fully fall on your sword here, because I did try to keep you to finish your term.
No, I appreciate that. But
but-
I mean, I was thinking about this in June, and if I did this in June, it probably would be a different story tonight. So, but I wanted to see this through, and I wanted to have at least one night in this building. So that's on me.
You're forgiven. You earn the right to be here, to have a couple of meetings in the chair, so I appreciate that. Thank you. Any other comments on this piece before I address Mr. Perez and the hotel aspect? No? Okay. Mr. Perez, your hotel comments are spot on. That is something that we very much are advocating and working towards. I have also had conversation with Mallory Gwynn, the chamber director, as well, and that is a piece that is part of our conversation. And I know that with the project, as Mr. Robinson and I have been discussing, what's next from this project. We want to see, we're trying to connect the pieces here for the project on the city block that we've now vacated, and that is one of the irons that is in the fire that we are looking at. So whatever input and legwork that you've been able to do, which I appreciate, and I know that we've had some conversation on that as well, I'm anxious to see something like that come about, for sure.
I just want to let you know that I'm not going to let go. I'm going to be like a dog with a bone.
Are you shocked about that?
No, and you should be, so thank you. We appreciate that.
He can talk from the floor. Can we ask a clarifying question, or is that not?
You can, Pamela, go for it.
So I heard a specific question asked I never heard an answer for. May I ask it more clearly?
Sure.
Is it possible for at the next meeting, I don't know your name, sir.
Oh, Joseph Lindsay.
Joe Lindsay.
Joe, Ms. Lindsay, is it possible, because you danced around it, I heard the question asked, but it was never answered. Is it possible to postpone that process at your next meeting?
It's possible to have a motion to postpone it, and then they can either second the motion and actually vote on it or not. It's kind of, I'm sorry if that sounded like dancing. It is possible.
It did sound like it legally for your, sorry.
I'm a lawyer, I talk a lot.
Tony's waving at me.
My question was, is it possible at your next meeting, based on what you were saying, to have a motion made to table the decision for appointment till a further time after the 26th?
It would be possible. Somebody would have to make the motion, and then it be seconded, and then it be voted on and actually pass. Yeah.
You're very welcome.
Sorry if I wasn't clear.
May I comment just briefly on the hotel? I think it's a wonderful idea, and I think the fact that Mr. Perez and Mallory Gwynn from the Chamber are working on it and spearheading this effort is excellent. Will certainly lend my support to their efforts. We have gone down this road a couple times in the last couple of years, including working with consultants who have come back with without the positive response that you received from a Marriott representative. So that's a positive positive information that is new to me. From my perspective and from the city's, be happy to sit down with you and with Mallory and where we can fill in the gaps. Happy to work with you on that.
You may.
We also have a couple of investors in town. One you know, and I'm not going to mention his name, but another one that already has a Best Western hotel in Southern Oregon. And he's a huge investor, but these two individuals I would like to sit down with, or have you guys sit down with them and find out how they went about it to get the big conglomerate, the big people to come in and build, because I don't have that information, but I would sure like to know it.
And that's really where I would look to you and to Mallory and to maybe a chamber committee to work and gather that information, and city staff will support that effort. But from my perspective, an initiative led by the Chamber of Commerce and interested citizens can have the best outcome. As city staff, we've tried it a couple times in the last couple of years without the success that you're apparently having. So my feeling is I'd like to turn you loose on it, and Mallory, you have the contacts, you have the resources that we were not able to make, and let's see if we can turn those into a project.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Councilor Parker?
Just for the record, because we do have new staff and maybe even a new counselor, or two, but the last time the city of Canby did a hotel research, it was
8, 7, 8.
Well, it doesn't even matter the time. How it was done was so poor. It was a theoretical thing based upon imaginary cities across the country, a town of 15,000, 30 miles outside of a major population area, so many miles away. And then they came up with this and said, well, it's not going to work. It didn't take into account any of the things that Greg mentioned, the Allegro, the sports, all of these other things. Didn't take into the fairground. It did not take in the people attending the fairground. So it was a flawed study. 2 years later, Clackamas County government did another hotel study, which included Canby, and their conclusion was Canby was not big enough to have a hotel. Their sole source for it was the original flawed result. So the only research we have on this is bad. So I appreciate, Mr. Perez has been here a couple times. He wanted us to put in sidewalks. That was what, a 6-year project out to the fairgrounds. That was happening. A squeaky wheel is what this city needs. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all. Appreciate it. We're going to move into mayor's business and liaison reports. Those of you who are welcome to stay, please stay. If not, you want to move on and get home for the rest of the presidential debate, please feel free. Thank you, appreciate it. Mayor's business this evening. I just want to say, again, thank you very much to the citizens of Canby for approving a wonderful building. As I said on Saturday, this has been a 40-year journey to get here. A couple of interesting pieces that I saved from the speech from Saturday to share specifically about the City Hall aspect, that, again, the Historic Review Committee Board provided was that, so in 1976, when the search began, the police department, public works were crowded into the basement of the former City Hall, and the library had long outgrown the space it occupied on the first floor annex. So it had moved from the conference room of City Hall over to where Amanda Zyber, our HR manager and assistant city manager, where her office was. And other city services were crowded into the first floor. Over time, unable to move forward on a new civic center, the city adapted by moving the PD, Public Works, and other services to remote sites. When the existing City Hall was constructed, Canby's population was about 850 people. When the search for a new facility began back in 1976, the population was 6,100. Last census, we were just over 16,000. The unofficial new number that I'm hearing is that we're just crusted over 18,000. So Canby is on the move. This new council chambers is the 5th chamber in Canby's 123-year history. The first was on the second floor of the Knight Hall building, which is where Red Door Antiques is. The second was in the Knight building in the middle of the block on First between Fur and Grant, which was now, it's been since demolished. The third was in the customer service area of City Hall currently. And the fourth is the current space that was originally a fire equipment garage. So there you have a little history on how we got here and where we're at. So again, thank you very much to city staff for the hard work to get us in here. And I, on Saturday, was remiss and had omitted thanking library staff for their hard work. For those of you that don't know, our library staff packed up all those books and moved all the shelves into place and unloaded them. And so every book and DVD and CD was loaded onto shelves in your library with the ever-loving hands of library professionals. So I thank them tremendously for helping us get to this point. Last night attended the Park and Rec Board meeting, so be on the lookout. There's a survey that they're working on that'll be coming out, and I'll let Councilor Rocha finish up what that's going to be all about. Attended the meeting today with the Canby Garden Club regarding some beautification pieces that they're working on. They're working on some beautification pieces in and around town, but specifically they're looking at pieces to do with 99E. And as that develops, Councilor Parker, I would like for you to be involved in that conversation as that gets going. And Mr. Robinson was there today as well, having that conversation. So there's some pieces we've got to do on our end, but there's a lot of momentum, and they're very excited about getting that going. Attended there's a new kind of mayor's group that's been meeting. It's called the Metro Mayors Consortium, and that meets once a month, and so I've just started attending those, and that's been very interesting. One of the things that's coming up, or the pieces of the last conversation, was the next legislative session that's coming up here for the state. And one of the concerns is regarding right-of-way and franchise fee legislation that the state is looking at. And Joe is hoping maybe you could do some homework on that for us and get us some information on what it is that they're kicking around, and if there's pieces that we need to be aware of, and if there's anything that we need to get on letterhead to say, yay, we support it, or no, we don't. So based on what I'm hearing from the other mayors, it may be a no, we don't. But again, first meeting, but it's just, if you wouldn't mind looking into that, that'd be great. Like I said, I had a meeting with the chamber director today, and one of the topics was business development, the hotel aspect. He wanted to express his thanks for us bringing up and discussing tourism. And then another issue that seems to have kind of started coming up was the issue of Canby area transit running on Saturdays. And Councilor Height, if you wouldn't mind researching that, or having at the next meeting what that might be, or where that could be at, and maybe Rick, that could be, I know we're looking at static routes and it might be a ways away, but just as maybe a food for thought to get to. Sounds like they're getting some inquiries by the business community and citizens of, getting CAT running on, at least maybe on Saturday for, I don't know, for Dial-A-Ride or whatnot. And I know we're in mid-contract right now, but something to be pondering for the next one. C4 meeting was that last week, 2 weeks ago? We had a discussion panel on housing. Thank you to Councilors Hensley and Height for coming to that, and our city manager for coming along willingly to that meeting. There was really some great things. So the panel members were, one panel member was from Central City Concern, one was from Metro, another one from Manufactured Housing Communities of Oregon, Johnson Economics, and then Home First Development. A couple of interesting pieces from the panel was that there's currently on the books 30,000 rental projects planned in Portland. That's a lot. 30,000 is quite a bit. They're seeing an increase in homeless youth and actually elderly, those 55 and older, in the Portland metro area. And there was several suggestions made to look at, that the county's going to look at, and that might be something that we, can maybe look at as well, in terms of, feasibility in Clackamas County in terms of housing and what might be some things that they'll are looking at to address. I'm also on the C4 front to let you know that I'll be bringing to you some updated bylaws. Whenever we update the bylaws on C4, we have to bring them back to the councils for conversation and either direction to approve or not. So just to let you know that that will be coming up probably in January of the new year. Finally, with Councilor Roach's impending departure, I want to make sure that his liaison positions are still covered for the remainder of the year, though there may be just a couple of meetings. So I've asked Councilor Height to finish with the library board, since she's been attending the meetings already, and she's accepted that. And Councilor Coleman will finish out the Canby Fire District meetings. So we'll still have that piece going. And then I'm going to take over and finish up with Parks and Rec, just because I'm very curious as to what they're working on. So I will take that for the remainder of the year. And then in the beginning of the new year, we'll go through and we'll be assessing that after post-election, and we'll be making that decision on where we're going with new liaison positions come that time. So we will move into council liaison reports. Councilor Rocha.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You're right, last night you were at the Parks and Rec, my last meeting with them, and there's a survey coming out, should be out a couple weeks, I believe. Be asking some demographic questions, age, male or female, just a whole bunch of questions. And then part of it, though, the main part of it is how do you want the parks funded for maintenance? And there'll be three options: one, a special district, a levy, or park maintenance fee. So that'll be coming out here shortly. I think they're going to give them 60 days to respond, and then they want to bring something to the council in January. So that is all I have for parks.
Okay.
Thank you.
Councilor Parker.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. The Bicycle Advisory Committee will be meeting next Tuesday evening at 6:30 here in the new City Hall to continue discussing bike routes and ways to support pedestrian and walkable city. Also, a thanks again to our amazing Historic Review Board. There was an article in the paper week before last on the cleaning of headstones, which I find really important. A city that remembers its past can treasure its present. So thank you, Carol Palmer and your crew. And then they are also going through the paperwork to have the old City Hall, which I guess is now the new name for our old City Hall, to have that added to the list of historic registry, which has some advantages in that it means whatever future use, it does have to retain its current historic integrity. And then finally, if the election isn't scary enough, we've got the Halloween downtown coming up on Monday, October 31st. This has been growing in interest every year. And I don't know whether it was last year or the year before, it was pouring down and people were still trudging along. So that's sponsored by our Main Street program and participating downtown merchants. Come on down.
Spooktacular Village out at the, turned off my microphone, at the fairgrounds. Correct. There's a very scary side apparently and a not so scary side. So, me, I like haunted houses, so I'll go through the, I will go the scary side. Like you said, like the election right now is not scary enough. So, Counselor?
Oh, I thought you were.
No?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes?
Well, I like you said, I attended the C4 Housing Panel. You encompassed that report very well, so I don't need to elaborate on that as a liaison report. And Councilor Parker already covered the Halloween, so I just encourage everybody to come down. It's always a good time. I was down there last year, and I should have brought an arc instead of my costume, but that's okay. We plan accordingly. I have CTV5 tomorrow, so I don't have a report on that. I just have a community announcement, of course. Sunday, 8:30, auxiliary breakfast, 8:30 to 11:30 at the American Legion Post 122. Use the Fur Street entrance. And finally, just wanted to acknowledge the passing of Leonard Walker. He has been a fantastic volunteer, loves this community, and he was volunteered at the Adult Center, Traffic Safety Commission. He was the chair of the Northeast Canby Neighborhood Association for some time, just a long time volunteer in this community. So just wanted to, I guess, send thanks to him and pray for his family. That's all.
When did he pass?
Last week.
It's too bad. Thank you for that. Council President Dale.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, on the Canby utility front, they did have a meeting. I don't have any particular new news to report. They just went through their budget updates and such. For those of you that are Canby Tel customers, you will have noticed in the newspaper and by mail that they have completed a merger with Mount Angel Telephone, and Canby Tel will now be known as Direct Link. That will be their new name. You'll see the new logo and such on your envelopes. Same great people, same great phone number, same great service, but a new name as they move forward to a new era that should work out better for everyone in Canby and Mount Angel. And then finally, I couldn't resist sharing, with the library opening, it was an immense amount of fun, as I know it was for all of us, to walk around and talk to people as they visited the library, especially the families. That was a pure hoot. Lots of comments about the space, lots of smiling, laughing children, which translated into lots of smiling parents. Just a really great vibe, and that was the consistent message I received. But one comment in particular I wanted to share, and I knew Councilor Parker would enjoy it. I visited with a family that had taken up in one of our new rooms, community rooms, and the mom said to me, with this kind of arrangement, I can now go back to school and know my kids will be safe and can read while I do my homework. And at that point I went, that's why we did it. That's why we did it. So, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. That's great. Councilor Height.
Thank you. Hello. So the new library, a few yards away here, they have new collection areas coming, which is exciting for them. So the Lucky Day collection has arrived. Lucky Day means if it's your lucky day, you show up, the item's on the shelf, you get it. There's no holds. So these are really hot items, bestsellers, new DVD releases. A lot of county libraries do that, and now we do too. We've joined the club. So that's pretty fun. In addition, there's going to be an Oregon Heritage collection, a college and career collection, Christian fiction, and Blu-rays. So those are some additions that they're pleased with. The Library District Advisory Committee, otherwise known as LDAC, has been meeting. They're discussing the county district funds and the spending of capital funds for various cities. So they're kind of looking at that. Apparently they're not supposed to be spending the money they get from the county, from the district on capital projects, but some libraries have been. Anyway, they're kind of going back to the rules and trying to figure out what's going to happen in future there. So I'll let you know when I have more information on that.
Sorry to interject. How will that impact us?
Won't at this point. It's more like for the sake of fairness, like, hey, this money's supposed to be earmarked for this, not for building a new building. Yeah. Yeah, I'll let you know when I know more. And then during the library board meeting, last week, we got to tour the new building, which was fun, which I'm sure, many of you have already done, and hopefully, citizens feel welcome to take a look too at the new buildings. But that was pretty fun. More furniture is coming, and even more has arrived since Saturday's grand opening. There's hardly a seat to be sat upon on Saturday, but there's cool couches now. Yeah. So there we go, it's already here. We talked about the community room application, so there's a process. If you want to use the conference rooms, et cetera, preference will be given to library events, city-sponsored events, et cetera. But there's a form to be filled out, et cetera. So there's a process. We talked about process things. And then the Library Foundation right now, as we sit here till 9 p.m., is having their film festival right next door. So that's kind of neat. If anybody wants to run out now and catch the last 30 minutes of the film festival, go for it. But I'm glad that they're doing that. That'll be fun to hear how it went. So I'm glad for them.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, it'll be fun to hear how it goes. And the library, Friends of the Library are raffling off a couple items. You probably saw it during the grand opening. There's this huge photo album that's worth I think $1,000. It's signed by the photographer. They're raffling it off. It's $25.
$7,000.
Oh, seven?
Is the original value of the book.
Okay, much more than,
Yes.
okay. Good.
Brand new, it's it's amazing.
All right,
Yeah.
so that's one item. And then this painting by a local artist, her name is Letta Balik Banel, so it's an original painting, that's second prize. But anyway, through November 12th, I think, you can buy a raffle ticket from the Friends for $25, and of course it goes to the library. So that's a little plug for what they're up to. The Adult Center, they had their annual retreat the other week, so I wasn't part of that, but if there's an update, I'll let you know. And Canby Area Transit, you mentioned the Saturday service. They're just beginning their master plan. They're going to initiate that process, so yeah, I'll let them know that that's something that you're hearing about, but they're going to have lots of community outreach for that project. Yeah. And then other things, C4 went to, Parks and Rec. The Lions Club, I actually made a little presentation on what's going on in the city with all the building and construction and whatnot, and so they're always happy to have guests come and check them out. They're 2 Mondays a month at the fire department, actually. They meet there now, so a nice group of folks. And then thank you to all the library staff and city staff and everybody for the great work they've done on this building, so I'm happy to be here.
Councilor Coleman.
Mr. Mayor, I'm pleased to welcome our newest planning commissioner, who we'll be mentioning here shortly, Tyler Hall, who comes to us with 14 years in the construction industry and is currently a project manager. We'll also be scheduling an interview with a new candidate for the Planning Commission, so I'm pleased we have citizens in the community who are willing to serve our city and our community. I very much appreciate all the time and energy put forth from our citizen volunteers. Our next traffic safety meeting will be held in this building, isn't that right, Rick? That'll be on Monday, November the 7th. And then just one final thing, my wife and I had a chance to attend a concert at the Performing Arts here in Canby, and just wanted to say what a wonderful place that is, how fortunate we are to have that, and what a great concert it was. It was Derek Nelson and family. But, that's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Moving to the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I move to adopt the minutes of the October 5th, 2016 City Council regular meeting and the appointment of Tyler Hall to the Planning Commission for a term to expire on December 31st, 2018.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve the consent agenda, which include the minutes of the October 5th, 2016 City Council regular meeting and appointment of Tyler Hall to the Planning Commission for a term to expire on December 31st, 2018. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Next on the agenda is a public hearing for an annexation. It's ANN/ZC 16-04, John Meredith of 1.65 acres. And I will read our annexation hearing procedure. The matter before the council is a request to annex property into the city of Canby. Canby Municipal Code 16.84.050 requires the council to conduct a public hearing to evaluate the proposed annexation application and determine the appropriate zoning designation upon annexation. This matter requires a public hearing, and all interested persons in attendance shall be heard on the matter. If you wish to testify on this application, please fill out a yellow public testimony card. I have several examples here. They're on the back podium. At the appropriate time, please step forward to the microphone, state your name, address, and interest in the matter. Those people interested in testifying, please indicate that desire by raising your hand at this time. Okay. You may be limited by time for your presentation. The applicant will have a total of, Brian, you need what? How much time do you need, Brian, tonight?
Don't need much.
Brian will get 5 minutes to speak. The pro-opponents will be allowed 2 minutes each, and the opponents will be allowed 2 minutes each. And then the applicant will have an additional 2 minutes for rebuttal. Testimony and evidence must be directed to the applicable criteria listed in the staff report or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or land use regulations, which you believe applies to the decision. Failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. All questions will be directed through the mayor. Any evidence to be considered must be submitted to the hearing body for public access. Conflict of interest. At this time, I would ask that any member of the hearing body who has a conflict of interest please indicate the nature and extent of the conflict and whether you intend to participate or abstain from hearing the present matter. Councilor Rocha, do you have a conflict of interest?
No conflict.
Councilor Parker? None. Councilor Hensley?
No conflict.
Council President?
No conflict?
Councilor Wright?
Nope.
Councilor
The
Coleman?
only conflict I have is I'm liaison to the planning commission, and I attended the planning meeting where this hearing was held.
And I have had no conflict of
That's not a conflict, but that could be construed as potential ex parte, because it's outside of this room that you might have had contact with the applicant as they were presenting. But it's not a conflict, it's ex parte contact.
Thank you, sir. Ex parte contact. Also, if any member of the hearing body has had any ex parte contact with anyone prior to this hearing, including a visit to the site, please declare the nature and extent of such contact at this time. Councilor Rocha?
None.
Councilor Parker?
None.
Councilor Hensley?
None.
Council President Dale?
None.
Councilor Height? And Councilor Coleman?
Yes, planning commission.
Perfect. And I know of the site because of dropping my children off at preschool near there several years ago. So that's the extent, and I will participate in case I didn't say that before. Does any member of the audience have any questions for the council or the mayor regarding ex parte contact or conflicts of interest? None. The public hearing will be conducted as follows. We will have staff report, questions of the staff by the hearing body. I will open the public hearing for testimony, the applicant, proponents, opponents, and then rebuttal. And then I will close public testimony. Questions, if any, by the hearing body, and then discussion by the hearing body. A decision shall be made by the council at the close of the hearing, or the matter will be continued to a date certain in the future for further action by this body. This will be the only notice of that date you will receive. The city council's decision regarding the annexation application is final and will be reflected with a first and second reading of the associated annexation ordinance. Does anyone have any questions about the procedure of the hearing? Seeing none, Mr. Brown?
Thank you,
It is your
Mayor.
show, sir. Thank you.
The staff is actually sitting closer to you
I
than
know.
we used to. We have to turn our head to see everybody. But it's great. I like being in the new building, and maybe we'll work with the technology and practice with that before we're before you. The annexation that's before you is considered a Type 4 process in our development code, which means it's one of the broadest that affects development and the future of the community in the possibility of the largest way. And so we take annexation seriously. And they are advertised as a public hearing at both the Planning Commission and at the council level. And the Planning Commission did review this at their September 26th meeting, and they recommended at a 4-0 vote to that the annexation and its associated zone change be approved by the council. And this particular request also has a third component to make sure you don't overlook that, and that there is a development agreement that is also that is proposed and part of your packet. And that's because our annexation ordinance defines certain areas in the community as either needing a development concept plan to look at the area as a whole, or to develop a development agreement that might address any areas that you want to see happen when an actual development application comes forward. And that's how they work. This involves an annexation of a total of 1.8 acres. The private property being rezoned is 1.65 acres, but it also includes half the right-of-way along Territorial Road where it intersects with North Oak Street. Oak Street is partially there now, and with this annexation would be more fully extended in its north-south direction. The development agreement that has been developed by the applicant and presented for consideration with this talks primarily about assuring that besides all necessary utilities will be provided by the developer, it talks about improving the north-south Oak Street and making the necessary dedications for right-of-way and such that are needed for Territorial Road, and extending a future 18th Avenue from North Oak straight eastward that would eventually go over to North Pine Street. And it would also serve not only this proposed annexing property, but the next property over to the east that is yet to be annexed into the city as well. Staff looked at this in the staff report and in our presentation to the Planning Commission and said one of the most important considerations we thought that were certainly in favor of this is that this property is relatively small compared to some other annexations we've been having recently, and is completely surrounded by the city. It's an island. And in my way of thinking, whenever you have an opportunity to annex an island in the community, you should do that. Those people have been benefiting from being in the city, but they're not really in the city. And it's an opportunity for us to really strongly consider that. All the other criteria that are in the code, the one that is of greatest importance that the applicant works with staff and they do some due diligence in making sure that is there a need for more land in the community at this point in time? And more specifically, is there a need for land that will have the zoning that this land will have in accordance with the comprehensive plan, which is R.1.5 zoning. That's a medium density residential zoning. That zoning can potentially allow duplexes or triplexes besides single-family homes. This application and the narrative provided by the applicant indicates very clearly and strongly that their intent is for detached single-family homes. And because it's R1.5, they'll be able to create smaller lots than you would find in our low-density zoning districts. And so that's their intent. Wanted to make sure you understood that we're not approving a subdivision layout. It's a concept plan of what they're thinking about doing. Trying to think if there's anything else I really wanted to cover, and that's really about it. Just more specifically, the recommendation by the Planning Commission is that you approve the annexation and that upon annexation, the zoning of the 1.5 district would take effect and we would change our official zoning map, and that the development agreement as written in the code currently talks about that being recorded within 7 days of the final action on the second reading by the council. It's not really critical now because that provision was there because of the charter provision that this goes to a vote of the people. So I'm not sure it has all that much bearing now, but it is in the code, so we place that into the recommendation that we continue to follow that. Are there any questions?
Any questions for staff on this report?
Just a couple.
Okay.
So to recap, oopsie, got to get used to pushing the green button here. So to recap, Brian, this one is a design agreement as opposed to a concept plan?
That's right.
Okay, because there's not an existing concept plan. It's an island, right? Right. Okay. Looks like we're going to bring in an island. We're going to get some great street improvements out of it. We're going to get some badly needed R1.5 inventory. True?
Right.
Okay. On that, you said the narrative of the developer is that he intends detached single-family homes. Can you remind us, because it's been a while since we've done a design agreement as opposed to a concept plan, is he bound to that when it comes layout time, or can he change his mind?
He really is bound by what's in that development agreement. That's the intent of it. There is some leeway in working out the technical details. The way it's worded is fairly generalized. For instance, it doesn't say 18th Avenue will be exactly in this location.
Okay.
It says there will be one, and we can adjust how it aligns and where it's going to be on the site with some leeway when the actual application is submitted.
Okay. And if the development falls through financial reasons, whatever, the zoning persists, correct?
That's right.
We
So-
would keep that valuable inventory.
That's right, and that's why we make a point that you're not approving an actual development. You're approving the zone that allows more than just detached single-family homes, because it's a higher intensity zoning district. But that's certainly what the intent is to do, and that seems to be what the market is calling for right now. So even if this developer didn't go forward, that may be what we end up getting in all reality.
Very good. Oh, it's an opportunity for perhaps more affordable homes,
Right.
detached homes, because of the smaller
Certainly
lot
is.
size. Very good. Thanks for the softball questions. I was really more after the clarification, because it's been a while since we've done a design agreement. Any reason in your mind why to say no?
Not in my way of thinking.
Sounds like a lot of wins for the city. Thanks. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep. Did you have a question, Councilor?
Yeah, comment and question. So, yay, more inventory of a smaller footprint. This is exactly what we wanted, right? Because we have the least inventory with
That's right.
1.5, so great. And then the question about Oak Street, so eventually it's supposed to actually connect up both of those pieces of Oak, because there's a gap right now.
That is what our pre-application meeting was about, is how we're going to facilitate adjacent properties in the future to also develop and achieve our comprehensive plan goals for interconnected streets, because that provides the best way for pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles to get around, is more connections rather than fewer, so they don't have circuitous routes to get to where they're trying to go. So this is an area that could use another connection through this area, and it looks like it could actually be done successfully to serve this property and the next property, to provide more lots and make that connection between two existing streets.
Out of a fear of any sort of appeal, is that, Brian, the packet that you have, is that the same packet that all the counselors have been forwarded?
Yes.
Okay, and so everybody here is considering all of the evidence that you have there?
Yes.
Okay, and that's part of the record?
Right.
Okay.
Question to that?
Part of it is, before, remember when we had an appeal that went up to LUBA somewhat recently, some of the arguments were whether or not we actually made the old record that was created in lower meetings part of that meeting for the purposes of appeal. So I just want to get everything out there.
Remember those reams of paper?
Pre-iPads.
Pre-iPads, yes, several times. Yes, sir.
Page 34 in the packet gives you a pretty good illustration of that.
The map.
Any other questions for staff then? Okay. Well, then I will open up the public hearing for testimony. We've heard from, any other input from the applicants at all? Any, yes? There we go. Hello, sir, how are you? Yep, right there's perfect.
Good evening, Mayor Hodson, President Dale, and City Council members. My name is Pat Sissel. I'm at 375 Portland Avenue, Gladstone. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicants. Unfortunately, John Meredith is out of town on business again this evening, like he was at the Planning Commission hearing, so I'm here solo. Brian's introduced the property to you, and it sounds like you're familiar with it from the packet. The site is 1.65 acres. It has one existing home on it that it is intended that the home will remain on one lot in the development when it's developed. There is a detached garage, barn, shop, whatever you want to call it. It's multiple uses. It'll be removed from the site. The property will be zoned medium-density residential R1.5 on annexation, and those lots generally are 5,000 to 6,500 square feet. And where R1 lots, which is the majority of the lots developed in Canby, are typically 7,000 to 10,000 square feet. So a smaller footprint, more of a starter home would be able to be constructed on these lots. As Brian mentioned, the zone does allow for duplexes and triplexes. It's the intention of John Meredith, if he builds this, that it'll be built as 8 new single-family homes. We did go through and do a updated available land supply in Canby. It's on pages 30 and 31 of your council packet. I'll just kind of highlight it for you. We looked at the available platted lot supply in Canby as of July 25th, 2016, when we submitted the application. What we found were that in the R1 zone, the low density zone, there were 61 lots remaining. In the R1.5 zone, there were 0 lots available. And in the R2 zone, there were 26 lots. So in total, as of July 25th, 87 lots were available in the city. On page 31, we kind of outline the rate at which building permits have been absorbing lots in the city. The last year that we have complete data is 2015, and when 85 permits were pulled in the city of Canby. If you look at the historical average over the last 10 years, Canby pulls about 44.7 building permits per year. I'm sorry, builders pull 44, not Canby. Over the 3-year historical average, it's almost identical. It's 45.3. So one is slightly above 45 permits per year, the other slightly below. The 2015 actuals, as I mentioned, were 85 permits. So the current rate of absorption is a lot faster than the historical average, but it'll average out in time, I'm sure. With the remaining buildable lot supply as of July 25th, using the 10-year historical average, there's 1.95 years of land supply available. If you use the 3-year historical average, it's 1.92, and if you use the 2015 rate, there's 1.02. So whichever way you look at it, Canby's well below the 3-year land supply that you generally feel is at an acceptable land supply in the city. By the end of 2016, we also calculated what we figured the land supply would be at the end of this year. There's 2 new subdivisions that are anticipated to come online. Both are R1 subdivisions, and both are 6-lot developments. So if you add those developments in, we expect at the end of the year, the average land supply will range from 0.75 years to 1.8, depending upon which rate you choose to follow. And as I mentioned, both those new developments coming online are R1 subdivisions, so it does nothing to help the R1.5 inventory. So when you have three residential zones, R1, R1.5, and R2, and one of your three has no inventory, that's not a good thing, in my opinion. It really limits the choices available to people looking to buy new homes. And there's been a historical shortage of lots in this zone. I've been doing a lot of work in Canby since the late 90s, and there's typically been few subdivisions of R1.5. I looked at the zoning map. There's three significant blocks of R1.5 zone land in the city. One is along South Township, kind of between South Pine and South Redwood, west of Trost. Township Village, 1, 2, and 3 make up part of that, Blair Commons and Redwood Park. Those subdivisions were all developed from 1998, or excuse me, from the 1988 through 2001. So those lots have been long gone. Another significant block of R1.5 land is Hope Village. While it is housing, it's housing for a older segment of citizens, and it didn't provide R1.5 land for families. And the other significant block is that newly annexed area on Southeast 13th by Sequoia Parkway Extension, annexed into the city, but no lots created out in that area yet. So for these reasons, I feel that it's appropriate to annex this land and have it zoned R1.5. Be happy to answer any questions.
No, sir.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, appreciate that. Yeah, we know there's a little bit of a squeeze coming.
Mr. Mayor, I appreciate the details that you gave us. It's been a while since I've been updated on our available land supply, and it's gotten tighter since the last time we were briefed, so appreciate the information.
Any proponents on the matter? Not that anyone raised their hand necessarily. Okay, move through. Any opponents to this? Having none. Rebuttal piece, anything negative? Want to respond any further? No? Great. I will close the public hearing. Questions from the hearing body at all on the matter? No? Okay. Discussion, thoughts? We've shared some of that already, but any further discussion or thoughts or anything? Okay. Great. We'll move on to. Wonderful.
I've got it here.
Fantastic.
When you're ready.
I am ready.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve annexation's zone change file ANN ZC 16-04 pursuant to the provided recommendation by the Planning Commission.
Second.
Motion's been made by Council President and seconded by Councilor Height to approve annexation zone change file ANN/ZC 16-04 pursuant to the provided recommendation by the Planning Commission. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. Thank you all. Moving into resolutions and ordinances.
We have one ordinance. It's ordinance 1449. This is proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 1.65 acres of real property described as tax lot 1800 of section 28 T3S R1E WM Assessor Tax Map 3-1E-28DD and 0.15 acres of Northeast Territorial Road right-of-way and amending the zoning from County Rural Residential Farm Forest 5-acre RRFF5 to City Medium Density Residential R1.5 and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the city limit and approving a development agreement by and between the City of Canby and John Meredith, property owner, for 1.65 acres of land.
Great. Thank you, Kim.
Mr. Mayor, I move for passage of ordinance 1449 proclaiming annexation into the city of Canby, Oregon, 1.65 acres of real property described as tax lot 1800 of section 28 T3S R1E WM Assessor Tax Map 3-1E-28DD and 0.15 acres of Northeast Territorial Road right-of-way and amending the zoning from County Rural Residential Farm Forest 5-acre RRFF5 to city medium-density residential R-1.5 and setting the boundaries of the property to be included within the city limit, and approving a development agreement by and between the City of Canby and John Meredith, property owner, for 1.65 acres of land.
Motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Carries 6-0. Moving into unfinished business, findings, conclusions, and final order. Motion to approve those as well.
Mr. Mayor, I move to approve ANN ZC 16-04 findings, conclusions, and final order.
Thank you, sir. Sorry. Microphone is off. Council President, motion's been made by Council President Dale and seconded by Councilor Hensley to approve ANN/ZC 16-04 findings, conclusions, and final order. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? That carries 6-0. At this time, there is no new business. Mr. Robinson, staff reports and city administrator business.
Yes, I do have a couple issues to bring to your attention. The first relates to the alley immediately behind our new library and civic building. As you will have noted, it is not yet complete. We did prepare the prep work for the alley and had every intention to have it paved prior to the opening last Saturday. However, the rain caused us to have to delay the laying down of that asphalt. We need 3 or 4 dry days before we can do the asphalt overlay. So we're watching the weather, and as soon as we have an opportunity, my apologies to those persons in the community who have tried to use the alley, and we'll get that done just as quickly as possible. It's not something that we have forgotten. It's just something that we are subject to the whim of the weather. Second item is that, as you know, one of the outcomes of both our move and the move by our police department several years ago is several pieces of surplus furniture. I did receive a request by Canby Center here in the last several days to see if any of that furniture could be made available to them. I returned that call and indicated to them that it is my intention, and has been my intention, to bring a resolution to you declaring that property surplus, and to first seek your authorization to make the surplus furnishings available to nonprofits within the community, and then whatever is left after we have addressed those urgent needs, I would propose that we dispose of through some type of a silent auction, making the properties available to the public. So that'll be coming to you in the weeks ahead. If you have comments or inquiries from other nonprofits in the community or from members at large in the community, that's my intent, and you'll see it certainly before the end of this calendar year. I'll be working on it as soon as I return in the next week or so. The third item of business is, as the mayor had indicated, I did attend the C4 meeting here a week ago, at which affordable housing was discussed at some length. I sit on an affordable housing subcommittee of that C4, and we met earlier this week and discussed a number of topics without bringing any one of those topics to a logical or usable conclusion. We'll be meeting again in November. We're right now trying to select the date that will work. I'll need to spend some time with the mayor, who is also the chair of C4, and seek his counsel on several issues that I think are potentially relevant in the larger question of the availability of housing in our community and throughout the region, and there are some more instant questions relating to definitions and process forward that I think are something that I'd like initially to have that conversation with the mayor, follow up with the C4 subcommittee. That will then be followed by a larger C4 discussion, and then the fruits of all of that labor bring back to you as a council to seek your consent and authorization to proceed in a particular course of action, hopefully in concert with the other municipalities throughout Clackamas County. And that does conclude my report.
Thank you for being on that subcommittee. I appreciate it. I know that it is a very heady topic right now across most of the region, so thank you. Second opportunity this evening for citizen input on things that we've discussed or not discussed. If there's anybody that would like to address the council? No? All right. Kim, action review.
You've approved the consent agenda. You've approved annexation zone change file ANNZC 1604 pursuant to the provided recommendation by the planning commission. And you've adopted ANNZC 1604 findings, conclusions, and final order.
Great. Thank you, Kim. You need to turn the microphone on and reread that then?
You have approved the consent agenda. You've approved annexation zone change file ANNZC 16-04 pursuant to the provided recommendation by the Planning Commission. You've approved ordinance 1449 to come up for second reading on November 2nd, and you've adopted ANNZC 1604 findings, conclusions, and final order.
Thank you. Joe? Is there an executive session this evening?
There is not.
There is not. And before we conclude our first meeting in council chambers, I want to thank the council for this evening. I appreciate it. And I will say, for those of you who don't know, I am a person from the Cleveland, Ohio area, and I will say, go Tribe.
Yes.
I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
So second?
Second.
Motion's been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Height to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
That passes.